Greetings, everyone. This is Dave Fortson, COO of Regen Network and host of the Greenproofing series. Very excited to join you again today to talk about certifications. And with us today is Inna Kitaychik, Director of Circularity at SCS Global Services. Inna, welcome. How are you?
Well, how are you?
And where are you calling in from today?
I'm from Hastings on Hudson, which is Hudson Valley.
Hudson Valley, wonderful. From the other coast, this is Dave over in Santa Barbara, California. A beautiful fall day and excited to dig in. So, why don't we just jump right in as I do? Everyone's got their story. How did every human arrive in this crazy world of the sustainability industry? Could you start by sharing a little bit more about your personal journey that brought you into this position at SCS Global Services?
Sure. So my journey started when I was in undergrad. Right after undergrad, I was having this moment of, well, what do I really want to do? At that time, I was more interested in art history, but I had always kind of been interested in environmentalism. There weren't a lot of outlets to explore that. But right where I was, there was an interest in my alma mater in sustainable waste. And I was interested in that as well. Specifically, I was interested in composting. I had never heard of composting. I grew up as a kid in New York City. I had never even heard of the concept. But once I was introduced to it, it seemed like such a low hanging fruit to reduce emissions and to solve the waste issue in New York City. I mean, in New York City, even today, you see like piles of garbage on the street, when you're walking around. And the summer, it's like the stench is
It's
hard,
nasty.
is horrific, right?
Yeah.
So composting, just separating organics from the waste, seemed like a low-hanging fruit to remove that issue. When I was in college, there weren't too many people working on that issue yet, but there were some grassroots organizations doing this kind of collection. My college had a task force to see how can we improve waste collection on campus. And after that experience, I decided to apply for an urban planning program with a specific focus on urban sustainability. So I went to Cornell for urban planning with a focus on waste. I did an internship at the local compost facility over there, and I started thinking about more systematically how we can create this compost solution for cities. From there, I moved to California, got a job in waste management consulting. After a year of doing that, I realized that wasn't quite for me. I used that opportunity to pivot to sustainable certification, which also considered the idea of how can we turn waste, such as used cooking oil, into a fuel. So that's how I got to CS Global Services, and I've been working on sustainability certifications ever since.
Amazing. Well, I got to say, literally my favorite time of the week is once a week I take out our food waste. I've got a vermiculture box brimming with worms, and it is amazing how much I feed those little critters. I just joke to my kids who struggle to do chores. I'm like, look, those worms in that bin every single week, don't complain. They're just sitting there and eliminating large piles
Right,
of organic waste on our behalf for the planet.
exactly.
The kids refuse to actually touch the compost, and I just think it's the best thing ever. Thank you for sharing the background. So, talk to me about SCS Global Services, and you're the director of circularity. Help me join those two together in the coherent story that underlies your professional approach to sustainability.
Yeah. So SCS, it's a B Corp. Everything we do focuses on environmental sustainability. The divisions are broken out by materiality. You have your natural resources division, and they focus on like wood. Like FSC was one of our first standards of forestry certification. So then we have seafood, we have food and ag. But my division, specifically the C of my division, focuses on materials that can be circular,
Hmm.
meaning that at the end of their life, they could be collected and put back into the process, meaning they don't have to go to the landfill. There's circularity to them. And it's our job to promote that circularity. So the materials that I work with are plastics, metals, anything that after it's discarded, say through e-waste or through a packaging at the end, you take your Chinese food container, the plastic one, and then you throw it out. It can be taken by a sorting facility, broken down back into pellets, used as an input to a new process. So there's a standard for that. And that's what SES, there's a standard for almost any material. And that's what our job is. We're third party certifier, which takes the standard, applies it to a client who says, yes, we meet that standard, and checks whether they actually do, which is the essence of what you're talking about is green proofing. How do we green proof? Well, one way
Yep.
to green proof is you have someone else other than you confirming that you do the green thing that you say you're doing. And that's what certification is.
Amazing. So that's a perfect topic for the show. At Regen, we're in the impact verification business, slightly different model through nature-based solutions for sequestering carbon or building biodiversity. But for you, it seems like your work is maybe not obvious to a lot of folks, but shows up when you're walking in the store down an aisle and you're looking at clothing, electronics, or other things. There's usually a bug, right? A bug, a marketing term, a little thing that says, this thing has X amount percentage of recycled material. For consumers like myself, we look for that, right? It matters. We put a lot of trust into that little mark. That little mark is built on trust that it sounds like SCS and your office and your colleague's office are making sure is true. Is that accurate? Could you describe what goes into your day to day as a professional in this space and helping provide trust to a mark that millions of consumers are seeing, and in that if you were ever called out, or if the brand was ever called out, how you can back up that claim through a process that clearly is something that SES invested a lot of time in making sure that trust is authentic.
Right. What you're describing is the logo claim. So
Correct.
there's an association with it, right? So when you walk into a store, you're buying some chocolate and it says USD organic or it says fair trade, that means something. And that logo has a reputation, and everyone behind it has a responsibility to make sure that whatever that means is true.
Exactly.
And that kind of goes back to why do certifications matter? Why do standards matter? Because what you see in greenwashing is that anyone could create a nice, pretty green label, let's say organic, and put a green leaf on it, put it on a product. And the consumer doesn't generally know any better. Unless the consumer has really done the research, a consumer won't know whether that logo really means anything at all. Even after years of being in certifications, even I've fallen prey to that. Like if there's like pretty leaves on it, or it looks like the font is like I will fall prey to that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember buying some kind of cereal, and then like the package looks great. I was 100% convinced that this was going to be like an organic, delicious cereal. And like the second I bit it, like I was like, there's no way. And only then do I look closely at the label, look at the ingredients, and realize that I've been bamboozled and it's my fault. Like, I should have done the due diligence. That's what certification offers. If you look at the logo and then you go online and you research that logo, you will know what it means. And in general, it means there's a process for an auditor to verify the claim represented by that standard according to requirements. For example, I used to work on Bon Sucre, which is a sugar standard. So when our auditors go to the farm to verify that it meets the standard, they check the pesticide use, the chemical use. They check whether there's good practices for the workers, that the workers have water, that the workers have access to facilities. So I mean that those are just one of the or just a few of the requirements of the standard. When certification happens, someone other than the company and other than the standard went and actually checked, are these things happening? Are these things taking place? So that's the proof. The proof is that there's someone who has no financial interest in the success of the company or the success of the standard going and verifying, is this actually happening?
That's helpful. So maybe another area of helping people understand the nature of your model as a certifier, but also the nature of these trust marks. You're not necessarily setting the standard itself, right? So there's another party and you can correct me, that is setting a standard for X percentage of recycled material or cacao or whatever. That standard is set by a whole nother body, but your customer who wants to use that mark hires SCS Global to verify that they follow that standard.
Yes.
Whether you like that standard or not, your job is not necessarily to define the standard itself or judge its integrity, if it's better or worse than that other standard. It's more, did you follow that standard? If so, then your client has the ability to use that mark with a third party certifier being SCS Global for a standard that was for percentage of recycled materials or forest stewardship certified. Is that accurate?
Yes. And that is why the term third party certification is so important, because first party certification just means like, I'm the company. How trustworthy is that? The second party certification is that the standard created their own standard and then they themselves internally hired to go check whether the company met their own standard. But there's a conflict of interest in there as well. Third party certification is the certification body. That's a third party that has no financial interest in the company making the claim and therefore is the most trusted of the three, right? In order to be able to objectively verify if the company met the standard.
Got it. So help me understand, give me a sense of how the certification industry more broadly, and even the emergence of these standards that express themselves into a consumer product facing mark. What are you seeing shift over the past 5 years? And what are you looking for, or what's exciting, or what are some areas of, proceed with caution as this whole industry shifts, right? Because there is a lot of pressure on companies to meet consumer demand for products that have a lower impact on the planet or on people. And it sounds like your job is to take these standards, make sure that these companies are meeting them, but you don't control the whole thing, obviously, right? You're reacting to a standard that exists, making sure they follow it. Great. But I'm sure you have a really interesting bird's eye view of new standards that are emerging. Is there general observations you can share with us
Yeah.
about this industry and how it's shifting in a time of climate, in a time of globalization, of these massive supply chains and, people's desire to know Southeast Asia or China or being manufactured in Mexico, but I still want to make sure that it's organic or that it has the appropriate recycled material or some other emerging sociological desires related to people's products that they put in their carts at the store.
Yeah, I think you nailed it when you said supply chain, because most of these standards have a chain of custody component, which looks at the entire supply chain. You have a cell phone, you're like, great, this enables my modern life. And no one was really thinking about all the components that went into making the cell phone and all of the elements that came from all over the world in order to make it. That is what certification enables, because most of these standards have a chain of custody component. They will go back to the origin and see where the raw materials originate. So I think that is the most important thing, becoming more evident in the public consciousness, where there's this understanding that just because my supplier provided me something and it meets some requirement of sustainability, it doesn't mean that their supplier provided them with the same qualities. If you engage with certification bodies or you engage in standards, you actually get that visibility and you are able to prove the whole supply chain, not just looking upstream. The
Yeah,
answer.
I think that, yeah, mostly I'm kind of curious, like, are consumers, are their desires shifting? Like, is it a, are there, do you see a plethora of new standards emerging on consumer products? Are there trend lines? It sounds like people's desire for understanding from the raw material sourced deep into a supply chain all the way to landing in that particular product is people have high expectations around that or having higher expectations. So then maybe that's emergent. If there's just anything else that you're observing as we move into 2026 and beyond, where consumers and the supply chains are just encountering new requirements. When you get you're going to see some new standards landing on your desk. That's just going to be an interesting trend line.
It's a hard question to answer only because it's so industry specific. I mean, there are new terms like there's regenerative,
Regenerative, yes, right
right?
up our
That's
alley.
a new
Yeah.
keyword. We have something called the Global Heat Initiative, where we're tying processes and products to how much heat they generate. So, which is a little bit of a pivot from greenhouse gas and the impact of those gases as they enter the earth. There are new key terms, but those are specific to a specific industry. Overall, though, I think more stakeholders and clients are interested in understanding how what they do, where they fit in, right? So everyone has a role that they play, everyone has some kind of social or environmental impact, and they're now kind of shopping around and seeing what standard addresses what I do. And the truth is that there are many. So it's there's kind of responsibility of the client to see what are their lowest hanging fruit, like what environmental issues they could address the fastest, and what standard qu- quickly applies to them. There's a
Yeah.
lot to do, right? So it depends on where they can start.
What, in the day when you're in the midst of doing an evaluation around compliance with a standard, are there emerging tools that you're using? I'm kind of curious how AI is affecting every industry. Are there any unique tools at your disposal these days to help increase the speed and maintain or increase the integrity of standards? Is there something unique to CS Global Services technology stack, or is this like very much like you just got to put your head down, wade through the documents, and I'm sure which has its own unique level of pain. Anything cool technology stuff that it might be worth sharing?
So I cannot share, but I can confirm that SCS is considering. I mean, all industries are
Sure, it's
considering
disrupting
how
everybody.
can AI facilitate this, which is the correct step. But regardless of what AI can do, I think it is very important to keep the human aspect of this. I think auditors and their unique technical skills, their technical experience, and their human ability to actually reach down and
Yeah.
speak to every human along the supply chain is critical to the integrity of auditing. I don't think that will ever go away. Whether
Yeah,
there's automations and especially data efficiencies that AI can help with, I think we have a responsibility to do that.
of course.
Correct and efficient, we should do it. AI will play a role, but
Yeah,
it won't be the totality.
fair enough. As we close out, I'd love to hear what is bringing you hope right now. We're in an industry where it's a challenging time, right? It feels like there's a lot of stories that aren't so great around ecological impact and how humans are interacting with the planet and our need to consume. With that said, SCS Global is helping people make better choices. Can you speak more about what is bringing you excitement or hope for your industry or your office?
Yeah, I've been doing this for 10 years. And when I started and I wanted to get into the environmental industry, there were just so few roles. If you wanted to get a sustainability title, and you go on LinkedIn, there was like so few roles. And now, if you go on, there's plenty. That gives me hope that companies are hiring specifically for this need and to look at specific sustainability data. But the other thing is that I went to the Textile Exchange conference recently. The CEO in the closing plenary said very clearly that the theme of this conference, no one was trying to convince anyone anymore. 5, 10 years ago, everyone was trying to convince each other that there was a clear environmental issue. Now, no one's trying to prove anything. Now, everyone is solution oriented and asking, well, what can we do? Who are my partners for implementing my solution? That gives me a lot of hope. That means we're on the right trajectory and we'll get there.
I love that. Well, thank you for tying us out on a hopeful message. Enoch, thank you so much for your time today. I know it's valuable, and for your work. Thanks for helping make it easier for me and my family to purchase eco sensitive products wherever I am in the world. It was a pleasure having you on the show
Pleasure.
today.
Thank you for having me.
Be well, everybody.